Hey, it's Heidi with Broadmeadow Farm. Today we're going to go a little bit deeper into some weeds, specifically quack grass, which I forgot in last week's video. So let's dig a little deeper today and actually dig out those weeds. I'm back in my raspberries today, and if you click the link above, you'll be able to watch a video of when I cleaned out the raspberries, where I went over how to clean them out in the spring and how to cut back all of your dead fall. So make sure you click that up above. But today we're going to get back into the deep root of the mess that's in my raspberries, and that's the quack grass. Even though I pulled a lot of it out this spring, there is still so much here in the garden because quack grass grows by rhizome roots. And rhizomes are going to spread underneath the soil, and every couple inches they're going to sprout up, sending new grass. So what happens is when you actually break that clump of grass, you're actually creating a bigger problem. Each little section is going to shoot up a new root. So this is something that you can't get rid of by rototilling. You're actually going to have to get out there and straight out dig it out. So when it comes to getting out the quack grass in your garden, you're going to need two tools, either a spade fork or a spade. And what these are for is for loosening up the soil so that you don't rip the roots out. So I'm going to take this and I'm actually just going to start loosening the soil. Moving along here. Try not to dig too deep because you don't want to rip out the roots of the raspberries as well. So when you get in here for the weeding, you want to get your hands right in there nice and close. You can see all of these little roots here that are coming up. Those are each individual little quack grass roots. Look at how complicated they can be, and this is why you actually have to get in there and start digging. So you want to look deeper in there, and as you pull, you'll find more and more little chunks. Now this here is your raspberry, so we're going to want to make sure that we cover that root back up. The other creeping perennial weed that I've struggled with in our garden is creeping phlox. And this is one that actually grows very similar to quack grass in the fact that the roots are going to creep along the ground and shoot up along. And let's see if we can get out the last little bit that I have under my mock orange. So when I lift up the branches of my mock orange, I can see that I've still got a little bit of this creeping bellflower. It's kind of got this heart-shaped leaf. So this here is the creeping bellflower. You can see it has a bit of a different root system than the quack grass did, but it's still, this root is going to creep along the ground and it's going to shoot up. So if you have, let's say, bark mulch in your garden, even though it's really thick, what's going to happen is that that root's going to travel along underneath the bark mulch until it can find a really narrow spot, and then it's going to shoot up some leaves. So use your own conviction when it comes to herbicides, but glyphosate or Roundup is really not going to touch this at all. It's going to set it back a little bit, but because this root system is so strong, it's going to keep tunneling under your landscape fabric, under your bark mulch. The only thing that might really stop it would be a concrete border or a brick edge in your garden. The only way to get rid of the creeping bellflower just is by digging it out. I'm sorry to disappoint you that really manual labor is about the only thing that's going to get rid of that. Next on the perennial weeds that are really hard to get rid of is Canada Thistle. Canada Thistle is a tap-rooted plant, just like a dandelion. And again, if you don't get all of the roots, there's so much energy left in the roots that they can easily send up new shoots. So if you look at this one, it's actually, well, at the surface it looked like two different plants. Right here we've got one root and it's connected to this one here. So if I would have broke this one off thinking I got the whole plant, this one still has this entire root system here that's got energy, and it's going to keep sending up the shoots until you get rid of it completely. So in order to loosen up your tap-rooted perennials is, again, you take out your spade or your spade fork, you loosen the soil all the way around the plant. That way you can gently pull out the root, all of it. You can be surprised, sometimes the taproots on a dandelion or a Canada Thistle are well over 12 inches deep. Last week we talked about how to identify weeds, and mostly I focused on the easy annual weeds. Weeds that have just not very big root systems. We talked about how frequent shallow tilling is a great way to get rid of these, and how keeping your soil covered will mostly get rid of a lot of your weed problems. But when it comes to a perennial weed like quack grass, which has a complicated root system, it's a little bit more complicated in getting rid of all of those weeds. So here we've got quack grass, and you can see that this is its long root system. This here is called the rhizome, and each little spot on it has something called a nodule, and each of that nodules have the capability to create a new grass. So you can see here we've got a new one coming up here, and we've got a new one coming up here. So what happens is, if I break this and remove this part, this one still has all of the energy in the roots so that it can keep growing in your garden. So this one, if you were to rototill it in your garden, what you've done is you've broken it into 30, 40, 50 little pieces that are now going to be 50 new strong quack grass roots. You probably know this one. Here we have dandelion. Here we have Canada Thistle. Look at the difference in their roots compared to that of the quack grass. So you can see the quack grass is going to creep along the surface. This one is going to send its root deep down into the ground, so that if you break it only at the top, you've still got all of this root energy coming back to shoot up new plants. So this one, you have to dig deep to remove it. So that is why this one is hard to remove. Same with the dandelion. It has a strong fibrous root that's going to grow deep into the ground. And again, it's got lots of energy. So even if you rip off the leaves and think you're starting to starve it, it's got all of this built up energy that's going to keep pushing to the surface. So that's why you have to dig that one out as well. So when it comes to weed removal in your garden, really a lot of it's going to come down to grunt manual labor. Now I know that a lot of people say, well, why don't you just round it up? Why don't you do this? Why don't you use this herbicide? I want you to use your own convictions. Herbicides have their place. You may or may not want to use them in your garden. The issue with a lot of these perennial weeds is because they have such a strong root system, a lot of times a herbicide is not going to touch it. So I'm going to leave that up into your decision about whether or not you want to use a herbicide. And if you're leaning that way, talk to your local ag official, talk to your garden center, and they should be able to recommend something. I'm talking about your simple, free. Yes, it's going to be labor intensive, but that's the best way to remove a lot of these weeds. So I've fought probably for about 5 or 6 years with the creeping phlox, and I've only got it in maybe 1 or 2 spots left. So really just keep at it, keep digging it out, and you're going to get rid of them. If you want more updates about gardening and things in Alberta, make sure you click that like and subscribe button. It really helps me out, helps people to see my videos, and by all means, share. If you have any more questions, put them in the comments. I did ask on my Facebook a couple weeks ago if anyone had any questions that they wanted to ask, and that's what today's video was all about. But thank you for stopping by, and happy gardening.